UAV online.
Call of Duty. It needs no introduction. The first-person shooter series chronicling stories across our past, present, and possible future, inspired by the brave men and women who put their lives on the line in service of our country to protect our way of life. Those who answer the call of duty. It's one of the most recognizable names, not just in gaming, but in entertainment's culture across the board. No matter if you like it, hate it, or are just indifferent, there's no way you have never heard of it or seen it. Personally, for better or worse, I actually love this series. No matter my initial intrigue or the objective quality of the specific game, I always find myself coming back to them and enjoying my time with them more often than not. I started off with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare back in 2007, and since then have played nearly every game since then that's been released. Recently, I picked up the latest game in the series, Black Ops 7, and found myself a bit conflicted after playing it when I saw people's reception to it. I mean, yeah, the campaign's pretty stupid and isn't very easy to just, play, but I found it fun with friends, just giving it a one and done playthrough, and multiplayer and zombies are honestly really fun in my opinion in this game. All in all, I felt like BO7 was good. Not great, but good. Definitely enjoyed it more than Battlefield 6 at least. I don't care, I played both. COD is stupid, but at least it's not boring after 2 weeks. But anyways, after playing it for a while, it got me thinking, what COD is the best? Which one have I enjoyed the most as a complete experience? What game do I think best represents the peak of this series? Which brings us to our topic today, as I give you guys my top 10 Call of Duty games in the entire franchise. But first, let's set some rules, because without them, actually, do we need rules for this? Screw it. I'm gonna do my own thing. Disclaimer, this is my list and my personal opinion of these games, and you are allowed to disagree with me because it is free to be wrong. You can afford that right, and I can't say otherwise. Also, though I am not going to speak on any spoilers within these games' stories, I cannot promise that the footage used in the video will not have any whatsoever. So for all 7 of you who haven't played them already and might actually play these games now, I urge you to maybe not watch this video, or at least podcast it and don't look at the screen. Try not to get moist because of my voice. That rhymed kinda. Also, don't worry, I won't do it again. So without further ado, let's load up and hit the front line as we drudge through the battlefield of the top 10 Call of Duty games. Oh wait, actually, before we get into it, you're probably wondering, well, Adamant, if these are the best, then what's the worst? Don't worry, I got you. Ladies and gentlemen, the worst Call of Duty game in my humble opinion is without a doubt Call of Duty Ghost. Well, let me rephrase that. Ghost is not a bad game, but it is without a doubt the biggest disappointment I've experienced with this series thus far. This was COD's first step into the next generation, and it was advertised as if it was going to be this big leap for the franchise by Infinity Ward, and it just really wasn't for me. The campaign is boring and very ill-paced, with some of the most forgettable characters and missions that don't feel very impactful or memorable at all. Except Riley, of course, he's a good boy. The multiplayer has some of the worst maps in the series' history, and the design around them evolving as the match goes on made play more annoying than immersive or engaging. Not to mention that I think this game has the worst movement and gun feel in the entire franchise. No guns feel good to use in this game, and the addition of knee sliding and especially the introduction of leaning don't help with or make up for how heavy you feel despite having these tools. It's just not as fun of a game to play as the others. There was also Extinction, which, yeah, no. I don't know what Infinity Ward was thinking, but stick to your day job. Night shift is Treyarch's job. You don't need to do a zombies mode, especially if it's gonna be this lame. All in all, Ghost isn't the worst thing I've ever played, but it is certainly the worst this series offered for me to this day. Alright, I've said enough about that, and I'm sure the bloodbath will only get worse from here, so on with the show! The Call of Duty franchise is no stranger to looking towards the future and creating what they'd fathomed the evolution of warfare would come to look like, but there was one game that dared to go to infinity and beyond. And I ain't spreading buzz. I did not think about this before I wrote it down. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare was the next title release for Infinity Ward in 2016 and saw us going full-on intergalactic for the first time in the series, and while it's not a fan favorite title, it certainly had some great ideas and choices going into it. The multiplayer was a bit formulaic and boring, with map design that bordered on frustration more so than fun, with gun feel, movement, and score streaks all designed around this new combat rig system that allowed for unique traits and abilities, essentially alike to the specialist system in Black Ops 3, but was not nearly as engaging in my opinion. It also had their take on a true zombies mode as well, and unlike the terrible extinction mode from their last game, it was actually pretty solid and fun, with good map designs and a degree of interactivity and engagement within the map itself that made it pretty immersive, even if there was a bit of goofiness. But let's be real, zombies as a concept has always been goofy. I mean, look at this. But the standout factor that elevated this game from another yearly COD release to making it onto this list was without a doubt the campaign of this game. An engaging solar system spanning story chronicling the conflict between two warring factions with engaging missions, each varied in gameplay, scope, and visual flair, with strong writing and characters that are memorable and help you get even more immersed in this conflict beyond the final frontier. The only weak point I could find in the campaign itself, and that weakness is in quotes, is with the overarching villain Salem Koch, played by Kit Harington. I really enjoy Koch as a villain and believe he's effective in making me want to stop him and the SDF from becoming the sole political power within the solar system. However, while I believe in his menace through his charismatic cruelty and genuine hatred, I can't help but feel like at points Kit Harington's voice performance can make Koch come off a bit wooden, which can take you out at times, but again, it's very few and far between, hence why I said weakness in quotes, more of a nitpick than a genuine downside. All in all, Infinite Warfare is a game that does not take a very high placement overall, but I very much appreciate for its concept and execution of said concepts as the first spacefaring title in the series, and one I hope we could see maybe reapproached, refined, and fleshed out a bit more in a potential new installment. Maybe emphasize more alien elements or threats? I mean, let's be honest, COD is no stranger to the fantastical at this point, so might as well go all in and see how far we can take things. Imagine alien baddies in COD. Bet you'll buy those operator skins, I won't, but I know you will. With that, Infinite Warfare starts our list, taking its rightful place at number 10. For our next title, we take our first of many steps back into the 360 generation of Call of Duty with the epic conclusion to the original Modern Warfare trilogy, 2011's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. The last hurrah for Infinity Ward on the 7th generation of consoles, this game aimed to be the pinnacle of their design prowess for this era of gaming, as well as wrap up the iconic story we'd come to know and love. The campaign picking up right after the second game, following multiple factions across the unfolding of the narrative as typical of Modern Warfare style between Delta Force and our beloved boys of the now disavowed Task Force 141, takes us on a climactic, action-packed journey with many iconic moments, twists, and turns as we work to stop Makarov's tyranny once and for all. Gameplay wise, it serves us more of what we loved about the previous games, but elevates them to their highest point with set piece after set piece that elevate the cinematic flair of Call of Duty to its peak at the time, with writing, performances, and presentation that all come together to create an unforgettable experience, which, speaking of which, this game is gorgeous and still holds up to this day, graphically nearly a decade and a half later. The multiplayer and Spec Ops modes take the iconic formula of the previous games and refines them even further with great gun feel and very balanced mobility, alongside map design that is very consistent and varied, if a bit structurally similar across several maps in the game. Overall, Modern Warfare 3 is a great game, a fitting finale to the original trilogy, and certainly the apex of quality when it comes to Infinity Ward titles of the generation. But it still only tops out at number 9. Why? Well, because as much as I enjoyed this game and played the ever-loving hell out of it, it really is more of what we've already been given in the previous title, which we'll get to, trust me. While I really do enjoy a lot of what this game has to offer, I'd be remiss to act as if it's innovative or pushing the genre or franchise any further, when in all reality, it is just more of what we already loved about the previous games, just with a new coat of polish, making it the new standard. There's a reason why this game is usually referred to as Modern Warfare 2.5, and I am inclined to agree with that sentiment. And yes, I am aware of the behind-the-scenes issues when it came to the game's development, with key members of the IW team leaving and having an, at the time, new development team of Sledgehammer Games helped to finish the game, but either way, what we got is what we have. So yeah, Modern Warfare 3 takes its deserved spot at number 9. Finally, Treyarch, the beloved younger stepbrother to Infinity Ward, enters the list as we check out another title from the 7th generation in 2008's Call of Duty World at War. Coming hot off after the release of the iconic Call of Duty 4, Treyarch, who previously worked as a secondary developer porting Call of Duty 2 to consoles before becoming the primary developer for Call of Duty 3, had a lot to live up to with this next title for the series, and I'm happy to say that it delivered in spades. By the way, I should have mentioned this earlier, but for those who care, the original trilogy of COD games are not on this list. I have not played them, therefore they are void. A campaign that delivered upon the same level of cinematic innovation as Modern Warfare, but unalike to COD 4's contemporary modern realism, with a unique presentation that was more haunting and disturbing than previous games, set in the familiar territory of World War II, but told in a refreshing new way for the franchise that would come to set a precedent for Treyarch's signature style for their titles moving forward. Multiplayer was good, consistent, and ultimately serviceable, as it mostly played the same as Modern Warfare, with a fair number of maps, some being better than others, that allowed for some unique means of traversal compared to maps in previous titles, alongside some maps having tanks you could use, which utterly destroyed the game in the hands of the right players, but was fun nonetheless. This game also introduced the now iconic series staple, Nazi zombies, which is unfortunately dead as a doornail and is really clunky and aged and much more refined than later games, obviously, but it's allowed to be that as the first of a co-op mode that has gone on to spawn essentially a genre of its own. Now, I know after describing World at War you're probably confused. If this game is ultimately just a serviceable step up from COD 4, then how is it above the previous two if they're better conceptually or execution wise? Well, it's one simple factor: impact and uniqueness. For a fairly new developer to approach the difficult task of following up one of the most influential titles of the current generation, to nail it and in a ways make an equally significant impact on the level of pushing the genre forward is no easy feat, and while the other games are certainly more refined, they are only that way because games like this came before it. World at War is a game that to this day stands the test of time as a unique outlier of the entire series, with no other game since really having been able to convey the feel and overall tone this game does, which makes it deserving of its higher spot. However, regardless of my feelings being that way, there are still better games in the series of and after this generation than it, which is why I put World at War in the number 8 slot. Our next game is the only current generation Call of Duty to enter the list, and it's another Treyarch title that well deserves its place on this list, and that is 2024's Call of Duty Black Ops 6. The early 2020s were very rough for the franchise, as it seemed. With each new entry, the series was beginning to lose its luster, and when BO6 was announced after the release of what may be the most nothing COD to ever exist ever, still better than Ghosts though. This is not bad, it just feels like it didn't need to exist. I honestly did not have high hopes for the next title, but lo and behold it released, and I honestly was so happy I could finally recommend a Call of Duty game after the few years prior. A campaign that is a return to form, not only sporting a fun, engaging presentation and narrative straight out of an 80s spy film, with new and familiar faces from previous Black Ops games, but allowing a level of freedom and customizability that offers an experience that is linear but still feels ultimately tailored to your style of play, alongside even introducing elements of psychological horror to the series in a neat way that we thought was going to translate well into later titles. But unfortunately, Black Ops 7 took it way too far. Multiplayer that brings back all of the features of the previous titles and refines them with, in my opinion, the best, most polished and fluid control in the franchise, even against Black Ops 7's great feeling mobility, alongside great gun feel, really great maps that enhance and allow for fun improvisation with the fluidity of the controls. Even zombies, despite falling off the mode for some time due to it just getting a bit too out of there for me, was fun for the brief time I played it in this game, helped in turn due to the great feel and vibe of the game. It is easily without a doubt the most polished and refined COD to date, and one that I've sunk over 100 hours into over the time of its release, which at the time for a Call of Duty was huge, as previous titles had not held me for so long until this game. The only downsides I can think about the game are that while I adore this game's vibes and feel and everything in between, I will say graphically it pales to the fidelity of previous titles, especially when you get up close to character models game. It's also still not as innovative as other titles higher on this list, and is more of a perfect return to form for the franchise rather than a standout among its peers. Another thing I can say is that as a fan, I can't lie as if this game was not the first to really hammer in the narrative of COD's identity crisis, with the microtransactions hampering the game's reach and appeal, trying to compete with Fortnite, creating the new nickname for the series being called Fortnite for Your Dad, with skins and effects that range from cool as fuck to what the fuck. Nonetheless, this game was in total a revitalization that I and fans of the franchise needed to instill our confidence in this series again, and I feel overall it succeeded in that and is deserving of its place at lucky number 7. At number 6, we finally reached the game. the game that springboarded Call of Duty towards dominating the 7th generation of gaming and becoming the iconic name in gaming that it is today. Of course, I am talking about 2007's Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Infinity Ward knew that coming into the next generation, they wanted to take Call of Duty out of its comfort zone of historical warfare and into the world of a modern contemporary interpretation more relevant to the current day, and little did they know this game would change the landscape of not only the games industry but the first-person shooter genre as a whole forever. Call of Duty 4's campaign is still one of the best and most immersive stories told in video games across the entire series and amongst its competitors both at the time and even now, with the introduction of iconic characters that felt real and you connected to on a deep level, set pieces and moments that were seen as unfathomable leaps and bounds to achieve on the current hardware, and a presentation, design, feel, and tone that really made you feel that you were engaging in modern warfare. Multiplayer that innovated on the groundwork of the FPS games that came before it, like Halo and Quake, creating a new groundwork that not only Call of Duty but the FPS genre to this day still uses as a foundation, with things like create a class and the perk system, along with iconic maps that laid down design principles that are now integral to multiplayer map design to this day. Call of Duty 4 is a game that changed everything, and I would never fathom making a list where it is not present. The game has to be there, but it's number 6. And the reason why it's number 6 is simply that as much as this game is genre defining and changed the landscape of gaming in the 7th era, it has aged. Like a fine wine of the highest quality, but nonetheless still aged. But that's all it really has going against it for me. Outside of that, this game is incredible and so important both to me personally and to the industry as a whole. There are better games to me. I mean, obviously this video isn't done yet, but there will never be another COD 4. And so this legendary game lands just outside the top 5 at number 6. Alright, so we made it to the top 5 Call of Duty games of all, but before we enter what will inevitably spawn a litany of comments and differing opinions, if it hasn't already, I would like to share some honorable mentions before we jump in. The games I'd like to give honorable mentions are Black Ops Cold War, Black Ops 3, and Advanced Warfare. Let's start with Advanced Warfare. Advanced Warfare, released in 2014 as Sledgehammer's first lead game, was an entry that was a bit polarizing but interesting at the same time. I wanted to give it a mention because though this game is pretty forgettable, it does have some very fun mechanics and concepts around the game's exosystem, which made the game, specifically multiplayer, very fun and addictive, even if the exosystem is a bit bare bones at first glance. Its campaign is also pretty great, with some very high production value for the current generation it released in, as well as some very fun sequences and set pieces. I personally am a champion of this game being pretty good and think it'd be neat to see Sledgehammer try and expand on this concept a bit more in a sequel, much like how I felt on Infinite Warfare. Black Ops 3. Holy shit, this game. Okay, so I understand outside of the zombies of this game, a lot of people do not fuck with this game. And I think that's a shame because, man, this game is a fun time. It's a wild sequel that flips the series on its head and could really be seen as another game entirely had you not said it's a Call of Duty game. It's bonkers, but goddamn, outside of the campaign being absolutely weird and confusing, the multiplayer was such a blast to play. The movement mechanics, weapons, and the specialist system and abilities were such a departure from previous games in a good way that felt so fresh for the series that I cannot help but appreciate this game. The gameplay alone holds it enough for me to give it flowers and an honorable mention. It's not an amazing COD game overall, but it's arguably one of the most fun games in the series. Black Ops Cold War. This game is a very safe release overall and doesn't really go too crazy, but what I can appreciate this game for is bringing back the Treyarch vibes we lost in Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4. A very grounded campaign that is very much a retread of previous concepts but not very offensive, alongside multiplayer that's very trite and true COD. Solid boots on ground gameplay that's not too complex but feels good and fast paced. It is also the first game to introduce face-off modes, which prioritize multiplayer modes on smaller maps for more engaging chaotic play, which I think to this day needs to be a standard in every new release going forward. I would talk about the zombies also, which I've heard is good, but this is around the time where I completely fell off zombies. I just didn't care for it. Overall, the game is just okay, but the vibes in the game and its visuals, music, and feel are what earn it a spot and an honorable mention. Alright, now let's get back to the big ones. After Sledgehammer's freshman release, Advanced Warfare had a pretty lukewarm reception, for their next release they decided to go all in by going back to COD's roots, returning to historical warfare in Call of Duty World War II. I'm gonna say this right now off rip. I love this game. I think the hate this game garnered is unwarranted and false, and I really do think this is not only one of the better COD games and Sledgehammer's magnum opus, but also possibly the best World War II based game ever. The campaign is great and carries the tone you would expect from a game based on World War II, with stellar performances from characters with dialogue and personality that make you feel truly immersed in the horrors of the war and the camaraderie you grow with your fellow soldiers, which is even more strongly implemented as a mechanic within the combat throughout the campaign itself as well. The visuals to this day are breathtaking, and the detail in environments, weapons, enemies, and environmental destruction looks realistic, which really immerses you in the atmosphere throughout from beginning to end. The multiplayer returns back to basics with traditional gameplay akin to the 7th generation of games, but much more refined and balanced, with weapons and movement that reach a fine balance across the board, alongside the new Division system, which added more customization beyond just your standard loadout and offered a new take on the traditional perk system of the series. And zombies. This game without a doubt has my favorite aesthetic zombies mode of any of the recent games, not only being a fun, well-made version of the Treyarch standard mode, but also making it their own by it actually being the most horrific it's ever been, with locales you navigate and variants you fight building just as much tension as the fight for survival in and of itself does. This game gets a lot of hate generally because of its poor launch state and return to roots advertising campaign, alongside its release being surrounded by the advent of the growing battle royale scene at the time, with PUBG launching earlier that year and Fortnite launching its battle royale mode just before this game's release. But I personally again think it's unwarranted and misplaced. I love World War II and think it's definitely one of the best of the last generation of Call of Duty games, and was a welcome return to a battlefield long since lost to the passage of time in the genre at the time. I don't think it's perfect though. I think a fraction of the multiplayer maps released in DLC are pretty miserable and not very well designed, and I am not a fan of the fact that this game has loot boxes and microtransactions that were pretty crap. Nonetheless, I can't let those aspects take down what ultimately was a memorable and fun experience over the other CODs on this list. Hell, in terms of revisiting these games for this video, this is the one I ended up actually still playing even after I finished getting footage. It's not the best, but it's definitely making top 5 at number 5.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Okay, so before you rip my head off and parade it down the streets for the masses, at least let me explain why. The original Modern Warfare trilogy is beloved by fans across the world, and I love them as well. They all made the list because of that. But Modern Warfare 2 is not only one of the best games in the entire series, the best game in the trilogy, or one of the best games in its genre. It's one of the greatest games ever made. For the Record is a campaign that I will never forget for the rest of my days, and a cornerstone of the 7th generation of storytelling, delivering an amazing, action-packed, haunting narrative that keeps you locked in from beginning to end. Cliffhanger, no Russian, Wolverines, the only good day was yesterday, the Gulag, of their own accord, loose ends. Do I have to even keep going? It's iconic for a reason. It's amazing. The first game to introduce the Special Ops co-op mode that gave Infinity Ward their respective Zombies mode, which was just as engaging if not more addicting than other side modes in previous titles. And multiplayer? Don't even start. Everybody and their fat mother were playing this game, including people that I knew who didn't even like shooters. Iconic maps, kill streaks, weapons, and sound design came together to create this addicting chaos that never got tiring to play. This game's multiplayer created the culture of online lobbies at the peak of their reception, for better and for worse, that has long since never been the same and will never be the same again. This game is godlike and is without a doubt legendary, with people to this day still claiming it as the best game, and I can't argue with that. But I will still disagree. It's number 4 for me. Why? Because it's broken. Yes, I know the brokenness of it is what makes it so fun. I understand that completely. But I cannot, in good conscience, put this game at the top when I do believe a game's enjoyment shouldn't come from a game just being unbalanced. I love how much chaos this game revels in, but that chaos isn't intentional. It just ended up that way. So I'm sorry, but I can't help but knock it for that. Also, this game introduced death streaks. Fuck death streaks. They're dumb and shouldn't exist. Get good, you fucking painkiller abusing noobs. So yeah, I know you guys will kill me in the comments, but Modern Warfare 2, despite its greatest feats, is my 4th favorite game, and it takes its place here. And now to get even more personal. So after Infinity Ward released Modern Warfare 2, Treyarch had some very high expectations to tangle with, following up the biggest and most iconic release in the franchise, and the result was actually a game that managed to do just that and more. Of course, I'm talking about 2010's Call of Duty Black Ops. I should have probably stated this earlier at some point, but it's better late than never, that my favorite developer for COD has always been Treyarch over any of the others. While I think Infinity Ward's games are just as great and appreciate Sledgehammer's works as well, I always thought Treyarch were the best in the way that they went about making their entries. This game is the reason why. Black Ops' campaign is an action-packed joyride that takes the presentation of COD to new levels with an emphasis on covert operations and psychological warfare conveyed visually and thematically, alongside switching the narrative style from previous games, going from a faction-focused back and forth to a personal narrative focusing primarily on characters, primarily with Alex Mason, which I love and honestly prefer. The multiplayer was a significant refinement and adjustment to Modern Warfare 2's with a much more balanced approach to what it had established previously, which again I like more. I cannot stress enough that I love Modern Warfare 2's anarchy, but I also understand that was not intentional, aiming to be much more than just fast-paced with a stronger emphasis on team coordination and strategy alongside maps that design-wise embrace those very core themes at play in a variety of ways. A new class customization system that allowed not only for a more varied customization of your loadout, but even the player character, utilizing the newly unveiled but now universal currency of COD points, as well as adding new mainstay kill streaks like the Napalm Strike, SAM turret, and the iconic RCXD. And of course, the return of Nazi zombies from World at War, which is without a doubt much more refined and improved here from their virgin outing of the mode. This game is the true beginning of the iconic survival mode becoming the popular feature that's long since become the standard across all Call of Duty games, no matter the developers at this point. All in all, Black Ops 1 is another franchise landmark that may not have been as impactful as what came before it, but certainly took lessons from its past and peers to create something truly special in what has gone on to become my favorite series within the franchise overall. Is it perfect or better over Modern Warfare 2? No, in all honesty, they both stand beside each other in terms of overall quality and enjoyment across the board, but what makes the significant difference is balance in gameplay and overall presentation, which is what places BO1 above it, as I just prefer the vibes of this game a lot more. Black Ops' first game takes the big 3. I'm gonna ruffle some feathers with this, but let the feathers be ruffled. 2019's Modern Warfare is, in my opinion, the best Modern Warfare game, and it is the best game that Infinity Ward has produced to this very day, and there is no competition. After a string of disappointing releases preceding this, with both IW titles particularly not being well received, Infinity Ward decided to go back to their iconic franchise that started it all, but to reimagine it for a new generation, taking advantage of next-gen technology to create a fresh new take on the series, and just that they sure did. The campaign for this game is the best this developer has produced, in my opinion, being the first game to challenge Modern Warfare 2's for the record, and personally it succeeded for me, as the level of realism, detail, and scope in this game's new engine and visuals is second to none, alongside the reworking of iconic characters alongside new ones, combining with a newer approach and tone, aiming for a more vivid conveyance of the morality that goes into question on both sides when one is in the line of duty and has to get their hands dirty, making cruel, hard choices for the sake of ending conflicts and threats to our home. Every mission in the campaign is immersive and really grounds you in this world and story being told, with the peak being Clean House, which is without a doubt one of my favorite campaign missions across the entire franchise, as the level of detail and realism in how the operation is carried out and the stakes and tension throughout are masterclass levels of design. Not to mention, god damn it, the first-person shooter to my knowledge to actually get night vision right. It's so cool to see implemented so well within the game. If World War II was Saving Private Ryan and Modern Warfare 2 is Black Hawk Down, then Modern Warfare 2019 is the Zero Dark 30 of this series, and I adore it for that. Multiplayer saw the franchise franchise get a complete overhaul with the brand new engine, bringing about a slew of new possibilities with map designs allowing for more verticality and options in terms of positioning and strategizing, weapon customization with the new gunsmith system, new player control mechanics like the ability to mount weapons along doors and objects, and my favorite new addition to control, the tactical sprint, allowing you to traverse and maneuver even faster than a normal sprint while both engaging in and avoiding combat. Listen, I'm a speed guy in Call of Duty, so if I can move and do things faster, I'm for it. This game also brought back the iconic special ops mode, but now it's a cooperative mode that continues the ongoing storyline beyond the end of the campaign. It marked the end of the season pass system, now opting to release free new content in the form of maps and weapons with the option to purchase a seasonal battle pass for even more extra content, cross-platform multiplayer and progression, Warzone, ground war, gunfight. This game did a lot of good for this franchise, and god damn it, I loved it all. The only reason that this game is not number one is the only thing I can say that holds it back, and that is that it's a remake. At the end of the day, as much as I think this game is amazing and stands out against the previous titles in the series, I cannot act as if this game does not owe its entire existence to the iconic trilogy that came before it, no matter how unique and well executed this newer version is. And with that being said, Modern Warfare 2019 takes its place on this list and in my heart as the second best Call of Duty game, but it isn't number one. The number one best overall COD game in the franchise for me is none other than... Come on, you had to have figured it out at this point. It's the best, a masterpiece, the magnum opus of Treyarch's legacy, and no game has, in my opinion, defeated the absolute rush of an experience that is 2012's Call of Duty Black Ops 2. They have tried to make a sequel to this game 5 fucking times, and not a single one of them has managed to be a better overall game than this. 2012 was a damn good year for video games in general, pumping out some unforgettable titles for better and for worse, but among all of them, this game was the absolute best game of that year for me. Something about the campaign having the best balance of both the traditional campy action of Call of Duty alongside the serious stakes, tension, and unpredictable nature of the story's progression, and a captivating storyline that takes the personal nature of the previous game and emphasizes it even further, in a phenomenal narrative continuation from the first game with the perspectives of iconic characters like Woods, Hudson, and Alex Mason, alongside his newly introduced son David, and the ensemble of new characters along with my favorite villain in the franchise, equally as fun as he is terrifying, in Raul Menendez, told in a non-linear way with branching paths and choices in both main campaign missions alongside the optional Strike Force missions that can affect your ending and offers replayability. Something about how the game conveys futuristic warfare in a way unlike any COD game to date, that is not too fantastical but not too grounded either, offering up an immersive world that is not like our own but can be perceived as a yet kind of view, where these technologies are concepts that are plausible in our own world. Something about the multiplayer being such an addictive gameplay loop with some of the most iconic maps in the series and my personal favorites coming from this game, alongside newer features enhancing the overall COD experience like the Pick 10 system for custom loadouts, the rework of kill streaks into score streaks, the introduction of iconic futuristic weaponry for players to use, with my personal favorite being the introduction of my favorite tactical in the shock charge, the introduction of weapon prestige, as well as league play, which I sunk thousands of hours of my life into. I have no regrets. Shit was fun as fuck. Something about the zombies in this game being the most fun I've had with the mode across the franchise, laying the groundwork for future zombies releases, with the new engine being used allowing for bigger maps to survive like the iconic transit, alongside more tasks outside of just surviving and introducing newer modes within zombies itself like grief and turned, which shook up the traditional formula in a great way. Hell, I still remember pulling an all-nighter with my friends on 360 and getting to level 100 on Die Rise, and how triumphant we felt having achieved a feat we thought was impossible. Something about how this game manages to take all the things I love about the franchise, about this genre and style of shooter in total, and manages to create such a complete package that has not been topped in the decade and some change since its release. Call it nostalgia, bias, rose-tinted glasses, sure, you're allowed, but it doesn't change the fact that Call of Duty Black Ops 2 is my favorite Call of Duty game of all time. Hell, it's one of my favorite FPS of all time, period. And there you have it. These are my top 10 Call of Duty games of all at this time. I hope that you maybe understand my choices and placements, and if not, that's fine too. At the end of the day, I made this video to honor and celebrate one of my favorite franchises, and at the end of the day, this isn't definitive, it's all just good fun. Feel free to comment down below your favorite Call of Duty games in the series. I'm curious to see what other people's opinions are and possibly how wrong I might be to most people. Here's to a hopefully bright future for the franchise as we move forward into another year of Call of Duty. Maybe the next game will be better than Black Ops 7. I'm hearing rumors going around that it's going to be Modern Warfare 4, but we shall see. And now that this is done, I can go back to playing more Splitgate. I hope to see you guys on there. What is up, A1? Adamant here, and I just wanted to take a moment to give my condolences to one Vince Zampella. If you're not aware, Vince Zampella is one of the most pivotal figures in the gaming industry, but especially in the FPS gaming genre. He was the co-creator of Call of Duty alongside Grant Collier and Jason West, who founded Infinity Ward. After he left Infinity Ward post Modern Warfare 2, he went on to co-found Respawn, if you don't know, which, you know, the guys who made Titanfall, Star Wars Jedi, Apex Legends. He had a huge part in those. He also, to my knowledge, led development of Battlefield 6, which I did not know about until this video, but that makes a lot of sense after playing that game as well. But the guy's responsible for shaping the genre into what it is today, and to have learned of his passing and have lost him so soon in the way that we did is very unfortunate and tragic. So I wanted to pay tribute to him in this video in some kind of way, because I mean, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have this series that I love, and I wouldn't maybe even be making this video right now. So thank you so much, Mr. Zampella, for your influential work and impact in this industry, and I hope you rest in peace. You were called to your own duty, and you performed more than admirably. We will never forget you.